Hey, welcome back to the Brotherhood of the Arrow and Sword channel.
We are here at the 2025 Fort Number 4 Out of Time timeline in Charlestown, New Hampshire.
And we've met some great friends. Stick around and find out who they are. Hey folks, welcome back. We are having a fun time today. We've made some new friends.
And if you would please introduce yourself to our lovely audience.
Yes, my name is Kim Johnson.
And I'm Will Lefevre.
And so what is it you're portraying here today?
Well, my impression is a female photojournalist from the World War II era, and specifically a civilian photojournalist. And so I have examples of different types of cameras that people would have carried with them. These journalists would have carried typewriter, some of the magazines that photos would have been published in. Women weren't allowed to the front, but a lot of times they found their way up there.
They get very determined throughout history.
Yes.
And I portray a paratrooper from the F Company 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 82nd Airborne Division, which was an airborne division that was created in 1942 and would fight throughout all of World War II and most of the European theater and Mediterranean theater.
So a lot of our audience really wants to know what drove you guys to get into reenacting, and then also into this particular era.
Well, for me, I started as a Civil War reenactor on an artillery group.
It's a slippery slope,
It
isn't
is,
Yeah.
and I got to fire a cannon, so that was the big draw for me. And after we met, I jumped ship and centuries to do World War II.
World War II, okay.
And then I've always been a history buff. Actually have a degree in history, and I was in the service. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division. Of all things, I went to the 60th anniversary of D-Day as part of the unit. And coming back, I met a guy who was a reenactor and sort of got brought into this hobby and sort of ran with it since. And you know, it's always been an interesting period, especially because I have the real connection to the unit, and of course the unit was created in that era. And then World War II and history in general just always been fascinating. And one of the things I really like about this time period is that there's still items from that time period that are achievable to get. You know, because of course, if you're 15th century, you'd have to rob a museum, but
Right. or build your own with proper patterns and stuff.
Right.
They didn't not like they have pictures and stuff of the time period.
yeah. And then it was also very interesting for me to get into, because when I first got into this, there was still a fair amount of World War II veterans, so you could actually hear their stories and talk to them. And one of the most fascinating things was when I did the 60th anniversary, I met veterans and actually got to walk the battlefield with them and hear their stories, and so that's really connected to me with it. And then, you know, for any reenactor, you start going down that rabbit hole, and you're on eBay collecting weird things, and then you collect enough of it, and you want to tell other people about it, so you come to events.
So how long have you both been reenacting, actually?
I've been reenacting since 2015, but he's been doing it much longer than I have.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started in 2004, and then I took a break. I was doing it in North Carolina, and then I moved up here. I didn't have a group, so I just sort of wasn't doing it. And then I got back into it around 2013 and have been doing it ever since.
And so my question is, as a woman in reenacting, especially doing military time periods, it's always a challenge sometimes to find out what your role is going to be. And I've seen women do a lot of options, but I have never seen a reporter. What was it that drove you to portray that type of personality for the time period?
That is a fascinating question and a very good one. So I went and attended a bunch of World War II events and decided that nobody was portraying female photojournalism, and I wasn't interested in doing what everybody else was doing, and I wanted to kind of stand out and be a little different. And I like photography, so this ended up being the path that I chose to do.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
We very rarely see that, like Lady Evelyn said, it's very unique, and we love seeing that aspect of the reenactment community. Do you find, as a female reenactor portraying what you portray, do you have a positive experience from the public?
Most definitely. People are really interested. with the cameras, I will have a lot of people come up and look at the speed graphics, which is my larger camera. Some people who maybe were like in their 60s or 70s, they are like, oh my gosh, I learned how to take pictures on this, or they were in the military as a photographer, and that's the camera that they started on.
Not to date myself, but I actually learned how on a camera like that. So, but I'm not that old.
Now we know, audience.
Yeah, so like lots of people have learned on that big medium, the medium format camera, and this was really the introduction of the 35mm film cameras that many adults, older adults, not older.
I know, I
but,
learned on the 35mm. So
yeah, exactly. So that we have learned on. And
Pre-digital.
that is, yeah, pre-digital. And then to experience the 120mm films too, that I've got a couple of those cameras and the twin lenses. So just, I'm trying to show what cameras were out there, what may have been used, and just share that, my love of photography and cameras with other people.
Now you were talking earlier with a family about the weapons and stuff, and then you started talking about something that I haven't heard a lot of World War II reenactors talk about, was the rations, the K-rat, the candies and stuff like that, which I noticed that the young ones were rather interested with. Do you find yourself talking about that a lot more? Or?
It's always weird with events what people hone in on. I always find it's different. Like there are some events suddenly the compass is the star, and then or the first hand walkie-talkie. Rations in general, though, and I find another one of our group actually does a big rations display. We always find that interesting because one of the nice things I like about World War II is that there's this connection to today. Like, you know, Kit Kats were created. You know, M&Ms really got their start because of World War II.
Yeah.
World War II. Yeah. And then also a lot of things, the technology that created out of World War II has carried on today. So like the rations we were talking about have a direct connection to the issued meals now, because it was the first time they really started issuing self-contained units that had the crackers and the beef and the extras and all of that stuff all in one unit for soldiers. Because of course before that, especially back in centuries, you would sort of get the food and it would be issued out as stew or this or that, and you would have to get each item, and this time it was starting to be issued so you could carry it in your pocket.
Right.
And yeah, no, the public is always very interested in the rations because I feel like there's this connection, and they especially like it because you start really hearing about it, like, oh, our grandfather had that, or I love some of the older veterans who are even ones from the 50s and the 60s. Like, oh yeah, I remember those, and I remember this, and this is how I would make it. And there's definitely the one joy I really get out of this is that direct connection to helping, sometimes helping people connect, right? A great story was we did an event last weekend in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and a woman, she had found her uncle who had died in the 60s, all of his paperwork from his service. And she didn't know anything about it, and she just wanted to give it to somebody who would use it. So she was just giving it to us. We were able, thank you internet, to we sort of looked at it, we looked at all the paperwork. We were able to, right while we were sitting there, tell her what unit he'd been in, where they had served, like what he would have done, all of that stuff. And she was so happy because they never knew, because he had died early, the aunt had died not long after it, so there was no connection to that. So that is one of the things I really like about this, is that you can really connect families to sort of their past on it.
Because a lot of times the people from, the veterans from World War II didn't talk about it. They came back and it was, no.
Yeah.
They were not talking about it.
I remember my grandfathers didn't talk about that when they were alive. Now, do you find yourselves doing primarily historical timelines, or do you branch out? Like we do educational presentations at schools and other places like Renaissance fairs and anywhere where they're crazy. I mean, willing to bring us in to put on these educational presentations. Do you do that? Do you do more than just like a historical timeline event?
We do historical timeline events. There's a lot of World War II centric events that we do, and not so much us, but I know others of our group have been called in and done stuff at schools.
Yeah.
We'll do museums. Where we have been to the Springfield Armory, and there was another sort of historical center in Worcester that we went to just 2 weekends ago, where we presented not specifically to anybody in particular, like it wasn't a classroom environment, but we set up our displays, and anybody who came through was able to take a
Yeah,
look
much
at
much like this. But yeah, you do. I mean, honestly, much like any area, I'll talk to anybody. Anybody who wants me there, I will come and show up and talk.
I feel like sort of
yeah, you don't get into reenacting unless you're willing to talk about this with a lot of passion, and maybe more passion than your audience likes.
If you come to the table, you are going to talk to us.
Right. Yep.
We will find something that interests you. That's what I said. Looking back here, people may not be like, oh, it's a weapon, they're not as interested. But as soon as you talk about food, it's something everybody can think about, right? Have I tried that? Did my parents eat that? Or where have I interacted with it?
Yeah, we find that in our
cameras.
encampment we have a cook who is cooking period medieval recipes, and it's a big draw. So when you start talking about food or interacting in a way that they relate to in their personal lives,
One of the neat things about this time period, you don't see it as much now, but when I first started, or especially a few years ago, it's an interesting way for parents to connect to their kids, because the kids got really into video games, so they would come up and know all of the weapons. They would like, oh, that's this and that's that and that's this, and they want to tell their dad about it.
Yep.
And they're like, then now they actually get to hold it and feel what it really felt like and see that stuff. And so they have a lot of kids come up and they're really excited because they super know all of that stuff. And then so there's always this connection and this interaction, and it brings a lot of joy, especially when as anybody who's a collector really gets into this life. I mean, I call it the last stage. Like the last stage, like I have now collected all this stuff. Now I want to tell everybody about it. And then you go down the rabbit hole of understanding how this was created and what this and the difference between that.
So for people who missed this event this year, since they're watching us online, is there a place online or a way that they can find you or where you might be at for future events?
We only have really Facebook right now.
Okay.
So
well,
we are on Facebook. So it's F Company 5. I think it's actually 504th now. Parachute Infantry.
So we'll try and connect
Yeah.
that down below so that you can
Right.
can find them on Facebook, so that you can look for them at other events and take a look at this amazing display for yourself.
We're mostly in New England. There are a few Pennsylvania events that we do go to, but mostly Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Yep. Well, we thank you so much for talking with
Thank you
us,
for
and
taking your time.
we can definitely see your love and passion for the reenactment, and just like us. And we thank you folks for popping in and checking out the video. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and tell us what you love about this video down in the comments. We hope you folks have a great day, and see you later. Welcome back to the Brotherhood of the Arrow and Sword.
We are here at the Out of Time Thailand